It's August and wipe is just around the corner, and I want to give you my top 8 tips to succeed this wipe. Whether you're new to Tarkov or you're a seasoned player, I want to give you my top 8 tips to help get you started this wipe so that you don't fall behind like everyone else. Starting off with number 1, we have the starter items. I think it's really important as you begin to play each and every wipe to make sure that you're keeping an eye out for the most important items that you're going to need for your hideout and for questing. One of the biggest things that happens to everybody every single wipe is that they fall behind looking for gas analyzers and morphines and things like that. And that can really set you back, especially if you don't get hours and hours to play. I understand that not everybody is a full-time streamer and can play for 10 hours a day, so it's super important to make sure that as you're going through each and every single raid that you're looking for those items that are going to be most important to you. Now, one of the coolest features that they added in update 14 is the ability to wishlist items. Now, it's super cool because we can wishlist items, not only items that we want for our hideout or that we might need for a quest, but also gear that we like to use. It's pretty nifty. We can right click on any item that we already have inside of our stash, and then we can add that to the wish list. Now, there's some pretty cool options. We can even categorize those so that we have them exactly where we want them, and they're even identified by different icons to help us out. Now, we can also do that from inside of the hideout. We can see all the items that we might need for a certain craft. We can add those to our wish list, or even hitting the heart, which I know a lot of people are doing to bring it up to the top of the list so that they don't have to keep looking for it. Tip number 2. Let's talk about entry-level builds. One of the biggest things when you're playing is making sure that you understand what kind of weapons that you can use as you begin to progress throughout the game. Now, I think as the wipe goes on, here we're at almost 200 days of wipe, it's really easy to forget what it's like to use a stock weapon. Now, we all start out, we get stock weapons, whether you're USEC or Bear, you're gonna get an MDR or an AK, and you're gonna be able to add a sight to it, and that's about it. So I think it's really important as you're playing or as you're warming up or getting ready to play, understand that you're gonna be back to a stock weapon. And how does that handle? What does that play like? What does that feel like? And I think it's important, if you are currently playing, go back, go to loyalty level 1, only buy weapon parts or weapons from loyalty level 1, and get used to playing like that. Now, the cool thing is, most of the time, Scavs are going to be wearing low-level armor. You don't often run into a Scav wearing level 6 armor. So I think it's important to hop into offline mode or PvE mode and take a level 1 weapon in there with level 1 ammo and just go to town. Tip number 3, understanding your skills. Now, I think it's really important to understand the difference between things like endurance and strength. Those are 2 skills that people often misinterpret one for the other. So endurance being how long you can run for, how fast your stamina regenerates, and strength being how much can you carry, and the list goes on. So it's important to understand those 2 and how they affect the way that you play. Now, starting out, a lot of us are overweight from the start. Now, that means a lot of us are never going to actually level up endurance, which is what gets us our stamina recovery back, which is super, super important because some of the modifiers to endurance are things like once you jump, how quickly does your stamina begin to regenerate? Once you've ran out of stamina, how quick does it you stay in that out of breath mode and then regain your stamina. So it's really important, and it's one thing that I like to do at the beginning of wipe is run lighter weight kits, things like the MP5. Don't bring as much ammo and just kind of hope for the best, really. But the important thing is to remember to stay underweight, because your weight limit is determined by strength, and that's going to have a big impact on how much you can carry before you go overweight. So if you run light kits, you'll be leveling up endurance quickly. Strength will come. I always try to tell everybody that asks me about this, that strength will level up just naturally on its own. You're going to be picking things up. You're going to need gear. You're going to need loot. You might be doing loot runs. You're going to level up your strength naturally. But what you want to do is level up endurance thoughtfully. So keep that in mind as you go places. If you don't need something, don't pick it up. Try to stay in that underweight zone so that you can level up your endurance faster, because you're going to hit a point where your strength will be kicking in, and then you can no longer level for endurance. So it's very important to keep that in mind. Now the other couple of skills that I'll say to keep in mind is vitality and metabolism. As far as metabolism goes, I eat everything I pick up in that game. Obviously, you can only gain so much experience towards a skill in each raid, so I will eat up until that point. You can check that while you're in the raid. It'll show a green arrow pointing up if you're still able to gain experience, and a red arrow pointing down saying you can no longer gain experience for that skill. Tip number 4, quest quickly. So this is something that I always try to keep in mind as I start every single wipe, is that at those beginning first few days, everyone is going to be on the same quests. So certain locations are going to be more crowded than others, knowing that people are either looking for an item or going to pick something up or trying to, maybe eliminate scavs in a certain area. So keeping that in mind can help you increase the longevity of your raid times. So if you're somebody that seems to die relatively quickly as soon as you get into a raid or every single fight you get into, remember, the name of the game is not to be a rat, but to play tactically. Now, it's super important to keep that in mind. There is a difference. Obviously, ratting, people like Stank Rat, who kind of, built their whole platform on sitting in a bush, sitting in a tree, and kind of ratting out those players, or playing tactically, which means, hey, I know everybody's going to be in a certain area. How about I play a little bit slower? Or maybe I move around and wait for that area to clear out and go right in. Or if you're lucky and you happen to spawn right near that area, run in, get what you need, and hightail it out because you know people are going to be coming. Or hang out, shoot some people, whatever, whatever you're into. I'm not going to judge. Tip number 5, the most important starting maps. Now we know, without a doubt, every single wipe, they like to add quests and change quests. But no matter what, we will always have quests on Ground Zero, Customs, and Woods typically in the beginning. We know that we're always going to need to find some gas analyzers, and those are pretty easy to find on Woods and Customs. We know that we're always going to need to get that pocket watch on Customs. We know that Ground Zero they've added. Since they added that, we always have to go there and find the machine gun, find the grenade launcher, go into the Terra group building and get, the hard drive. So we know that we're always going to have to learn those maps. So that's the most important thing I would say to do for this wipe. If you're a new player and you don't know those maps well, if you have access to PvE, get in there, run around, start questing on there, learn that map. If you don't, and you always have offline mode, you can test offline mode, turn off all the scavs, walk around, watch a video. I am going to be uploading a video very soon on each one of those maps mentioned, Ground Zero, Customs, and Woods, on how to quickly orientate yourself based on your surroundings. So it'll be a great video about looking at, stop, look around, find a couple of points, and know where you're at on the map. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see those videos. I'll try to include a title card once they're available here. If you're watching this video a little bit later, you'll definitely see that. But tip number 6, don't be afraid to use outside resources. So there's a lot of great resources out there that developers and enthusiasts of the game have put out, and I think they're great tools that need to be utilized more, especially when you're first being introduced to the game. Now, I know when I first started out, I used Mapagini quite a bit. I have 2 monitors, so I was fortunate enough to be able to throw the map up on one monitor while I played the game to kind of help orientate myself. Now, like I mentioned before, orienting yourself on the map is going to be very important, and having one of those maps and maybe watching some great videos by a certain creator would be a great way to kind of help get familiar and get to understand those maps. Now, there's also great websites like Tarkov Tracker that help you not only track your quests, but also items you may need. I know we talked about wish listing items, but being able to keep an eye on exactly what do I need. Maybe you're in a raid, have a minute to hide in a corner and go check that, as well as, and then there's also tarkov.dev. So if you ever want to look at anything else related to Tarkov, those are some great resources. I'll make sure to link those below in the description so that you can check those out whenever you need to. Tip number 7, prioritize your play style. Now, everyone's going to tell you to be a W key warrior, push everybody, fight. That's one of the biggest complaints and one of the biggest arguments you hear in the Tarkov community is everybody sits, everybody hides, nobody pushes W key. Well, guess what? That's not how everybody plays, and Tarkov was not designed to be played a very specific way. It is a broad game with a lot of customization, and so that allows for every kind of play style. Now, when I say prioritize your play style, What kind of player are you? Are you a sweaty COD guy? Do you like to run around and slide cancel all over the map and shoot at everybody? Or do you like more of the Battlefield style? Do you want to hang back, snipe people, move slower? Do you play a lot of Rainbow Six? Do you want to move tactically and hold corners? Play the way you want to play. Don't let anybody tell you how to play Tarkov. Not everybody can play like a streamer, but I will give you this little bit of advice, and I think it changed the way I play the game, which is do at times try to play like a streamer. And what I mean by that, I know that I just said don't play like a streamer, but play like a streamer. It's those moments of hesitation where we think, should I push? Should I run out and swing them? What should I do next? That's where we usually end up sitting for too long, and then we get pushed and die, or they throw a grenade, or something happens, and it usually doesn't end well for you. And once I started kind of in my head saying, I'm gonna try to make a play, make a cool clip, that really did change the entire outcome of my gameplay. Now, stats don't really mean anything in this game, but from a stats standpoint, my stats are pretty good. And that is, I think, a lot to do with the fact that I do now in those moments go, I'm gonna swing because it'd be really cool if I took all of them out. And honestly, probably 8 out of 10 times, it tends to work out in my favor, which has helped my survival streak and my survival rating increase dramatically. Now, the other thing that I would recommend doing is take a look at your key bindings, and I guarantee if you stop and take about 30 minutes out of your day, go through all your key bindings, and I think you're gonna find out that there are a lot of key bindings you could utilize that you just can't hit all 4 buttons at once to take advantage of, as well as things like the drop-down heal menu. I see a lot of people come into my chat and ask me, or my comment section, and ask me, hey, how do you get that cool little drop-down menu? That's just on release, so you're able to hold down, let's say 4, and then use that scroll wheel and choose what body part you want to heal. Now, with the prioritizing your play style, I often have this debate with a few of my friends, and it's ergo versus recoil control. Now, with that being said, that all tends to play to your play style. I have a friend who is a bit of a W key warrior. He often opts away from ergo, because every fight he runs in, hip fires, and then right clicks, so he ADSs once he's already firing. Versus me, I like ergo over the recoil control because I typically play with single fire mode turned on. So a lot of times I want to be able to be quick up on it and shoot, whereas he's going to be shooting and then already bringing it up. And so you got to understand what kind of player are you, and then start creating your builds around that, and that's going to make a big impact on your playstyle. And finally, tip number 8, use your scav strategically. Now, this is one thing that I used to not do when I first started playing Tarkov. Honestly, for the first maybe year and a half that I played, the first 3 wipes, I did not use my scav strategically. Now, I have a full-time job. I don't just do YouTube as a full, that's not my career. This is something fun I like to do on the side. So I don't often have a lot of free time, and what I would end up doing is using my scav, waiting for it to cool down, using it again, and then there was my night for video games. It's over, and I never actually played a PMC raid because I ran a couple scavs because I wanted to get money so that I could have the nice kit for when I get back in there. And I've realized that that has been a detriment to my progression in the game in those first few years. Had I got in and just kept running PMC after PMC, I would have learned a lot more. Now, I know that it's scary. Sometimes, it can be stressful depending on how new to the game you are, but I think it's important to get in there and run your PMC raids as often and as quickly as you can. With that being said, take advantage of features like the loadouts where you can preload, or even clicking right above like weapon slots or armor slots and seeing what you have available in your stash to take advantage of those quick equips. Now, when we use our scav strategically, I'm talking about, are we looking for quest items? Are you just trying to make money? Now, there's some great loot guides out there. I have a few of them you can find here. I'll link them above. Now, utilizing your scav to go out and loot quest items, or if you're just looking for loot to sell to make some money so that you can run that next PMC, that's going to be huge for the way that you play and how fast you can progress in this game. I typically run a scav every 10 PMC runs or so. Now, that's because I do survive a little more often than I used to, so I've been able to back off of my scav a lot less. But if you're a scav main, whether that's by choice or not, I think it's important to understand, what are you going in there? What's your purpose? Why are you in there? Identify that so that you can make the most out of each scav run. If you're scavving to loot, to sell, make sure you watch some of the great loot guides. I've got a couple out. You can check those out and be able to utilize that to make the most money you can. Or if you're using your scav to maybe look for gear or quest items, that's a great option to do to help you progress along that PMC quest line faster. Now that's it for my top 8 wipe tips for this upcoming wipe. I hope that you got a lot out of this, and I hope that maybe these are some things that you're not already doing that you can go ahead and implement. And I'd love to hear about the success that you have this coming wipe or preparing for wipe. So be sure to hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment down below. Let me know if you think there's something that I left out or something that you think would be a great addition that other players could take advantage of, especially new players. I know there's a lot of you out in the community that could help each other out, so be sure to check that out. Be sure to join the Discord. There's a link below in the description. Join there. We'd love to see some discussion on the topics there, and take advantage of all of the resources that I linked below. Now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you out there in the raids.